Jake's perfect life with Mia in vibrant Austin shatters when a single text from his best friend unveils a secret that flips their love story upside down. A dating app profile with Mia's face, but a stranger's name, sparks a gripping tale of trust, deception, and a calculated plan to uncover the truth. Will Jake confront the betrayal, or is there more to Mia's double life? Jake balanced a tray of iced coffees, weaving through the crowded East Austin Food Truck Festival, the air thick with the sizzle of tacos and live indie music. He spotted Mia laughing with their neighbors by a picnic table, her voice cutting through the chatter as she recounted a story about their recent hiking trip. He handed her a coffee, their fingers brushing, and she flashed him a grin that made his chest tighten. They were the couple everyone envied, 32 and 30, thriving in their careers and inseparable in their vibrant community. Friends snapped photos, posting them with captions like Jake and Mia living the dream. Their Instagram overflowed with moments like these: kayaking on Lady Bird Lake, volunteering at park cleanups, or sharing craft brews at local taprooms. To outsiders, their life was a seamless blend of love and adventure. At work, Jake managed logistics for a booming Austin startup, juggling delivery schedules and team crises with a cool head. His colleagues admired his knack for untangling chaos, like when he rerouted a delayed shipment to save a major client deal. Mia, meanwhile, kept a physical therapy clinic running smoothly, coordinating appointments for athletes and elderly patients alike. Her quick wit and efficiency earned her quiet respect, even on the toughest days. Despite their demanding jobs, they carved out time for each other, hosting barbecues or sneaking away for late-night tacos. Their connection was effortless, built on small rituals. Jake queuing up a playlist for their Sunday drives, Mia texting him goofy memes during lunch breaks. That evening, as the festival wound down, they walked home under string lights strung across old oak trees, planning their next weekend escape to the hill country. Mia leaned into him, her shoulder against his, and Jake felt the familiar warmth of certainty. This was the life he'd always wanted: steady, joyful, unshakable. Back at their loft, they collapsed onto the couch, scrolling through festival photos on Mia's phone. She posted one of them laughing by a taco truck, captioning it, "Another perfect day with my favorite person." Comments flooded in, friends joking about their disgustingly cute bond, family sending heart emojis. Jake added his own comment, "A simple, lucky guy," and meant every word. The next morning, Jake was at his desk, crunching numbers for a new client contract when his phone buzzed. Expecting a routine update, he glanced at the screen. It was a text from Ryan, his best friend since college, who'd stuck by him through late-night talks and wild road trips before Mia entered the picture. The message was just an image, no explanation. Jake tapped it, and the screen filled with a screenshot from a dating app. A woman's profile stared back at him, her photo crystal clear. His stomach lurched. It was Mia, not a look-alike, not a coincidence. Her, in a shot he recognized from their taco truck outing last month. The name on the profile read Sophie, claiming a love for Austin's music scene and late-night food runs. The age was off by 2 years, the bio generic but eerily familiar. Jake's pulse quickened, his fingers hovering over the screen. He locked his phone and leaned back, the office hum fading to a dull roar. It had to be a fake. Catfishers stole photos all the time, right? He opened Instagram, scrolling to the taco truck post. The photo matched perfectly, same angle, same lighting. But that picture wasn't public. Mia had taken it herself, a selfie she'd send only to him. His mind raced for answers. A prank? A scam? He wanted to believe it, but a quiet dread gnawed at him. Why this photo? Why her? He thought of confronting Mia, imagining her confusion melting into a laugh as she explained it away. But something held him back. If he was wrong, he'd look paranoid. If he was right, he couldn't finish the thought. Jake opened the dating app on his phone, fingers trembling as he created a profile. He chose the name Ethan, picked a stock photo of a generic guy, and crafted a bio to hook her. Lover of indie bands, Texas sunsets, and hole-in-the-wall diners. It mirrored Mia's interests, or at least Sophie's. He found her profile in minutes, the same photo staring back at him. He typed a message, casual but deliberate, referencing a band she loved. Then he hit send and waited, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. Hours later, as he sat in traffic, his phone lit up. Sophie had replied, her tone light and engaging, as if she were meeting someone new. Jake stared at the words, each one twisting the knife deeper. This wasn't a stranger. It was Mia. Jake's phone buzzed on his desk, the screen lighting up with a new message from Sophie. He hesitated, his thumb hovering over the notification, the hum of the Austin startup's open-plan office fading into a distant blur. It had been 2 days since he sent that first message, posing as Ethan, a carefully crafted alias designed to draw out the truth. The reply was short but playful, asking about his favorite local band. Jake's jaw tightened. The words, the tone. It was Mia's cadence, her knack for teasing without crossing into mockery. He typed back, keeping Ethan's persona light, mentioning a concert he knew Mia had raved about last month. Each exchange felt like a step deeper into a trap he'd set for his own wife. At home, Jake kept up the facade of normalcy. He grilled burgers for their weekly dinner with neighbors, laughing at their stories about a botched DIY project. Mia was her usual self, tossing witty remarks across the table, her hand resting briefly on his knee. But every glance at her now carried a shadow. Was she texting Ethan during her breaks? Checking the app when he wasn't looking? He caught himself watching her phone, noting how often she unlocked it, how her fingers moved with purpose. That night, as they washed dishes side by side, she hummed a tune from the band Ethan had mentioned. Jake's grip on a plate tightened, but he forced a smile, asking about her day at the clinic. She rattled off a story about a patient's recovery, oblivious to the storm building inside him. The next morning, Jake dove into work, rerouting a delayed shipment to avoid a client meltdown, but his focus splintered. During a lunch break, he messaged Sophie again, suggesting a local taco joint they both loved. Her reply came fast, agreeing it was a great spot and sharing a quip about their spicy salsa. The familiarity stung. Those were Mia's words, her humor. He pushed further, asking about her weekend plans. Sophie mentioned a hike, the same trail Mia had suggested they try soon. The coincidence was no accident. Jake's chest burned, but he kept Ethan's responses breezy, building trust with every carefully worded text. By the end of the week, their digital exchanges had grown frequent, almost daily. Jake limited himself to 1 or 2 messages, enough to keep Sophie engaged without rushing. She opened up, sharing stories about late-night drives through Austin's neon-lit streets, her love for quirky bookstores, details that mirrored Mia's life too closely to dismiss. He cross-checked every message against their conversations, her social media, even old texts she'd sent him. The overlap was undeniable. Phrases, emojis, the way she punctuated her excitement with exclamation points. It was her, hiding behind a fake name, flirting with a stranger who was him. Jake's best friend Ryan called that Friday, sensing something off during a quick coffee meetup. They sat at a corner table in a bustling East Austin cafe, the clink of mugs and chatter filling the air. Ryan asked if everything was okay, his tone cautious but direct. Jake deflected, saying work was intense, but the weight of the secret pressed harder. He didn't mention the app, the profile, or the messages. Instead, he asked Ryan to keep an eye out for anything odd online, vague enough to avoid suspicion. Ryan nodded, promising to let him know if he saw anything else, his concern lingering as they parted ways. Over the weekend, Jake and Mia stuck to their routine, hitting a farmer's market near Zilker Park. She haggled with a vendor over fresh peaches, her laughter bright as she nudged Jake to try a sample. He played along, but every smile felt like a lie. That evening, Sophie sent a longer message, describing a dream about moving to a small Texas town, a detail Mia had once shared during a late-night talk about their future. Jake stared at the screen, his heart pounding. He typed a reply, suggesting they meet up soon, maybe at a quiet spot downtown. The response came within minutes. Sophie was game, proposing a cafe on South Congress, one they'd never visited together. Jake agreed, setting a date for the following week, his fingers trembling as he locked in a plan. The days leading up to the meeting dragged, each one heavier than the last. Jake threw himself into work, staying late to finalize a logistics report, avoiding Mia's eyes when she kissed him goodbye in the morning. She seemed unaware, planning a dinner with her sister, texting him about a new recipe she wanted to try. But Jake's mind was elsewhere, replaying every message from Sophie, mapping out what he'd say when he saw her at the cafe. He didn't want to believe it was Mia, not fully, but the evidence was a noose tightening around his hope. As he drove home one night, the Austin skyline glowing against the dusk, he made a decision. He'd see this through, face her, and in the uncertainty, no matter what it cost. Jake sat in his car, parked a block from the South Congress Cafe, his hands gripping the steering wheel as the engine idled. The meeting with Sophie was set for 7 p.m., and the clock on his dashboard read 6:15. He'd left work early, claiming a personal errand, his colleagues none the wiser. His phone lay face up on the passenger seat, open to the dating app where Sophie had confirmed the time and place an hour ago. Jake's pulse thrummed, a mix of dread and resolve. He'd spent days crafting Ethan's messages, each one a calculated step to lure Mia, or whoever was behind that profile, into this moment. Now, the truth was minutes away. At home that morning, Mia had been her usual self, sipping coffee while scrolling through her phone, mentioning a girl's night out with coworkers. Jake nodded, keeping his tone neutral, saying he'd be catching up with Ryan for drinks. The lie slipped out easily, a shield for his plan. She'd left for the clinic with a quick kiss, unaware of the trap closing around her. Jake drove to the cafe early, choosing a spot across the street behind a row of parked scooters. From there, he could see the entrance without being noticed, his phone ready to send Ethan's final message. The cafe buzzed with evening crowds, couples sharing desserts, friends laughing over iced teas. Jake's eyes stayed fixed on the door, his mind racing through scenarios. What if Mia didn't show? What if it was a mistake, a cruel prank by someone else? But deep down he knew, the messages, the quirks, the details, every piece pointed to her. At 6:50, he texted Sophie, asking which table she'd picked, claiming Ethan was close but unfamiliar with the spot. The reply came in seconds. Near the front window, blue shirt, can't miss me. Jake's breath caught. He'd seen Mia grab a blue shirt from their closet that morning. At 7:05, she appeared, stepping out of an Uber, her movements casual but deliberate. She scanned the street, phone in hand, then walked into the cafe. Jake's chest tightened, his last shred of hope dissolving. It was her, no question. He waited 5 minutes, watching her settle at a table by the window, her fingers tapping the screen, likely checking for Ethan's next message. Jake typed one last time, running a minute late, be there soon. She responded with a thumbs-up emoji, the same one Mia used in their chats. He shut off his phone, stepped out of the car, and crossed the street, each step heavier than the last. Inside, the cafe smelled of roasted coffee and fresh pastries. The hum of conversation a stark contrast to the storm in Jake's head. He spotted her immediately, sitting alone, scrolling through her phone. She looked calm, expectant, a stranger waiting for a date. Jake's heart pounded as he approached, his shadow falling across her table. Mia looked up, her eyes widening, confusion flickering before recognition hit. For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them crackled with unspoken questions. Jake broke the silence, his voice low but steady. It was me, Ethan, all along. Mia's phone slipped from her hand, clattering onto the table. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Jake slid into the chair across from her, his gaze unflinching. He listed the messages, the conversations, the plans she'd made with Ethan, each word a hammer striking the fragile shell of their life together. Mia stammered, claiming it was a joke, a test for a friend's psychology project on online dating. Her voice shook, her excuses unraveling as Jake pressed on, asking why she kept it going, why she'd agreed to meet. She had no answer, her eyes darting to the exit, then back to him. Jake leaned forward, his tone calm but cutting. Every step, every message was a choice she'd made. Not a mistake, not a prank, a deliberate betrayal. Mia reached for his hand, but he pulled back, the gesture instinctive. She whispered they should talk at home, away from prying eyes, but Jake shook his head. There was nothing left to say. He told her to pack her things and be out of their loft by midnight. Her face crumpled, tears welling, but she didn't argue. Jake stood, his chair scraping the floor, and walked out without looking back, the cafe's chatter swallowing the sound of his exit. Outside, he leaned against a street lamp, the Austin skyline blurring in his vision. Anger, sadness, and a strange relief churned inside him. The truth was out, undeniable, but it left a void where trust had been. He drove home in silence, the loft's emptiness waiting to greet him. Mia's absence was already a ghost in the space they'd built together. Jake didn't call Ryan or check his phone. For now, he needed to sit with the reality, the weight of a life upended in a single evening. Jake pulled into the loft's garage, the engine's hum fading into silence as he cut the ignition. The confrontation at the cafe had left him drained, his mind replaying Mia's faltering excuses, her stunned silence when he revealed he was Ethan. He climbed the stairs to their shared home, the key turning in the lock with a hollow click. Inside, the space felt foreign, the quiet amplifying the absence of their usual evening routine. He moved to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and stood motionless, staring at the counter where they'd planned meals together just days ago. His phone stayed off, a deliberate choice to avoid messages, apologies, or worse, silence. An hour later, headlights flashed through the window. Mia's car pulled into the driveway, and Jake braced himself. She entered, her steps hesitant, carrying a duffel bag she'd grabbed from her trunk. Her eyes met his, red-rimmed and pleading, but Jake's expression remained unyielding. He pointed to a stack of empty boxes he'd pulled from storage, already lined up in the hallway. "You've got until midnight," he said, his voice flat, echoing his word from the cafe. Mia nodded, her shoulders slumping, and began packing without protest. She moved through the loft, gathering books, chargers, and a few framed photos, each item a relic of their shared life. Jake stayed in the living room, flipping through a work report to keep his hands busy, but his attention drifted. He heard the soft thud of Mia's footsteps, the rustle of clothes being folded, the occasional sniffle she tried to muffle. She paused at one point, holding a coffee mug they'd bought on a whim during a weekend trip to Marfa. She set it down, leaving it behind, and moved on. Jake didn't react, but the sight twisted something inside him. Not regret, but a pang of finality. By 11:30, she'd filled 3 boxes and the duffel, her movements slowing as the deadline loomed. She approached him, clutching her car keys, and tried one last time to explain. She claimed the dating app was a moment of curiosity, a fleeting escape from routine, never meant to go this far. Jake cut her off, his tone measured but firm. "You chose to lie, every day for weeks. That's not curiosity." He recounted the messages, the plans, the cafe, each point a brick in the wall between them. Mia's voice cracked as she asked if they could try counseling, start over. Jake shook his head, gesturing to the boxes. "You made your choice. Now I'm making mine." She stood frozen for a moment, then turned, loaded her car, and drove away, her taillights vanishing into the Austin night. The next morning, Jake called in sick, a first in years, and met Ryan at a dive bar near Barton Springs. Over cheap beers, he laid out the whole story, the screenshot, the fake profile, the cafe showdown. Ryan listened, his usual jokes absent, offering only a quiet nod and a promise to be there if Jake needed him. Jake appreciated the restraint. He wasn't ready for pity or advice. Back at work the next day, he threw himself into a new logistics project, rerouting supply chains with a focus that bordered on obsession. Colleagues noticed his intensity but didn't pry, assuming it was his usual drive. Word of the split spread quickly through their social circle. Mutual friends texted Jake, some fishing for details, others offering vague support. He responded politely but briefly, unwilling to fuel gossip. Mia's sister called once, leaving a voicemail asking to talk, but Jake didn't reply. He unfollowed Mia on social media, deleted their shared posts, and blocked her number, each action a step towards severing ties. The loft, now half empty, felt like a shell, but he didn't rush to fill it. He rearranged furniture, claiming the space as his own, and started running along town lake each evening, the rhythm of his steps away to drown out lingering thoughts. By the weekend, Jake heard through a friend that Mia had moved in with her sister across town. Whispers of her dating app stunt reached their community, and a few neighbors distanced themselves, their once warm invites to barbecues replaced with polite nods. Jake didn't revel in her isolation. It was just another consequence of her actions. He met Ryan again, this time for a pickup basketball game at a local court. Between shots, Ryan asked how he was holding up. Jake shrugged, sinking a free throw. "I'm not looking back," he said, and for the first time he believed it. The betrayal had carved a wound, but he was already mapping a path forward, one step at a time. Jake laced up his running shoes and stepped onto the trail circling Lady Bird Lake, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the path. 2 weeks had passed since Mia drove away, her boxes stacked in her car, the finality of their split settling like dust. He'd thrown himself into routine, logging extra hours at the startup, streamlining delivery routes with a precision that earned him a quiet nod from his boss. The loft, now his alone, was a work in progress. New shelves for his books, a small grill on the balcony for solo dinners. Each change was a deliberate step to reclaim his space, his life. At work, Jake deflected questions about Mia with vague shrugs, redirecting conversations to project deadlines. His colleagues sensed the shift, but didn't push, respecting the unspoken boundary. After hours, he met Ryan for beers at a low-key bar on Rainy Street, where they talked basketball and upcoming gigs, avoiding the fracture of his past. Ryan didn't bring up Mia, but his steady presence was enough, a reminder of bonds that hadn't broken. Jake leaned into these moments, finding stability in small connections that didn't carry the weight of betrayal. Word of Mia's actions rippled through their East Austin circle. A mutual friend mentioned she'd been spotted at a coffee shop, head down, avoiding eye contact with familiar faces. Her sister's social media posts, once frequent with family brunches, went quiet about Mia. Jake heard she'd taken a leave from the clinic, citing personal reasons, and was staying across town, rebuilding in her own way. He didn't dwell on it. Her choices were hers to carry, just as he carried his decision to walk away. He deleted the dating app from his phone, erasing Ethan's profile and the messages that had unraveled everything. One evening, Jake volunteered at a community cleanup near Zilker Park, picking up litter alongside neighbors he'd once hosted with Mia. They greeted him warmly, no mention of the split, their chatter focused on plans for a block party. He joined them afterward for tacos at a nearby truck, the conversation light and unforced. For the first time in weeks, Jake laughed without effort, the knot in his chest loosening. He didn't need to explain himself or rewrite the past. The community, once theirs, was still his, a foundation to build on. Ryan invited him to a music festival downtown, a sprawling event with local bands and food stalls. Jake hesitated, memories of past festivals with Mia flickering briefly, but he agreed. At the event, he navigated the crowds, nodding to familiar faces, grabbing a beer, and swaying to a folk band set. A neighbor introduced him to a new co-worker, Lena, who shared his love for obscure vinyl records. They talked for an hour, trading stories about crate digging at local shops. It wasn't flirtation, just connection, a spark of something new. Jake left the festival alone, but lighter, the night air crisp with possibility. Back home, he sat on the balcony, scrolling through his phone, now free of Mia's photos and their shared history. He stumbled across a work email, a promotion offer tied to a new logistics hub opening in Austin. He replied, accepting the challenge, ready to dive deeper into his career. The next day, he called his parents, updating them on his life without mentioning the cafe or the app. They sensed his resolve, offering support in their quiet way. Jake hung up, feeling grounded, his path clearer than it had been in months. Mia's absence lingered in small ways, a forgotten recipe card, a playlist they'd made together, but Jake didn't let it define him. He signed up for a half marathon, trained with Ryan, and started journaling his goals, each step a brick in a new foundation. The betrayal had left scars, but they were fading, replaced by a quiet strength. At the cleanup's block party, he stood among neighbors, grilling burgers and laughing at a kid's wild dance moves. The crowd cheered as a local band struck up a cover, and Jake raised his drink, not to forget, but to move forward. Trust was broken, but he'd learned he could rebuild on his own terms.